Hi folks, welcome to the Fairy Liberation Front. I just decided to make this video I've been meaning to make for months or years now about what the Fairy Liberation Front is. And I realized when I had these interesting colors on my screen that this would be a great time to do it. So thanks fairies for the colors and thanks for the reminders and thanks all along for everything to help this happen. So basically Fairy Liberation Front probably was first conceived when I was a kid hearing fairy tales, and especially the Oz fairy tales, the Oz books that I read, that to me were very clearly a foresight of the future. And the future, the characteristics of the Oz fairyland, that would also be characteristics of the future, would be the prime characteristics are no money, no war. So we end war, we end an exploitative monetary system, and we've got, Oz, we've got fairyland, we've got a heaven on earth where everybody lives together. So this was an idea I had long before anything else, and then it was nurtured by different ideas about gender, different ideas about sexuality, different ideas about um, psychedelics, especially herbs and other psychedelics, different ideas about art and music, different types of music, the Grateful Dead, and then especially Lady Gaga, uh, and many other types of music. Bauhaus with their fairy references in the song Hollow Hills, and just fairy references from all sorts of things. Fairy references from all types of music, but especially music that seemed to get into it. Just like all types of books and writings could have fairy references or fairy magic show up, but it was highlighted in the Oz books and other actual fairy tales where people are really trying for it. So my idea of the Fairy Liberation Front grew through all those experiences into modern times, and seems to apply to other things that people are on different spectrums, such as the autism spectrum or various other spectrums, where there's a spectrum of fairy in involvement in everything. Or one of my favorite phrases is everything is fairies. That there's fairies in everything, and that being able to liberate these fairies is also the same thing as liberating nature, liberating um, every element and individual in nature. It's the same thing as liberating humans, liberating people, but also animals, plants, insects, everything there is. And a lot of this appreciation did come. I have to return to giving credit to Oz for uh, having this world where plants and animals and creatures of all types are respected. But he comes back in other things like Pokemon, like people are going to live in a world where humans and Pokemon live together in harmony. These types of ideals pop up in everything, every type of art. So you'll see my videos tagging Fairy Liberation Front. Well, YouTube won't let you search for that, but you can find them in different ways. And it'll be like any flower I've seen, or different artistic expressions, or anything with a fairy connection. Baum, who wrote the Oz books, also wrote The Secret Life of Santa Claus, in which in Santa Claus appears in one of the Oz books too. One place they identify him as the most famous fairy. So there's a cat purring on me right now, which also reminds me of that side of the fairy world. So thanks for listening, and I'm going to take a call and come back. But welcome to the Fairy Liberation Front, and anything you do, you can hashtag Fairy Liberation Front as well. I also have to give credit to the people of the Palestinian Liberation Front and the idea that this is where, in the Monty Python skits, the People's Front of Judea, the whole idea of there being a front or a movement for liberating people, in this case fairies, and people who identify with fairies as being um, influenced, inspired, connected to fairies, or people who identify as fairies, or people or just fairies themselves, and whatever access they have to our digital media, to say, hey, we want your liberation. We want the end of your oppression. We want you to feel free and open to express yourselves. And this really is to encourage people to write fairy tales, because keep in mind, even though fairy tales are our oldest stories that humanity has, that change and go back and evolve to beginnings of time, people also write fairy tales today. And you can write a fairy tale, and people have written fairy tales in recent decades and centuries, and those are often, like my music is called Foxen, and I always call it fairy electronica, or electro fairy pop, because fairies inspire the lyrics, and fairies are always going to guide and enable and assist with fairy tales, but really any type of creative work you do, if you're open to the assistance and inspiration of fairies, and they'll be there to help you. So thanks, fairies, and thanks, everybody, and welcome to the Fairy Liberation Front. Thanks for hearing my explanation. Sorry if I didn't cover certain topics as much as others, but again, it extends into everything. These are just kind of the highlights that stick out. And again, thanks for these wonderful colors to remind me to talk about something as magical as the Fairy Liberation Front and the Fairyland and Fairy World. And check out the Oz books. I don't have one handy to show you, but TikTok of Oz is one I've been showing off a lot because of the fulfillment of the TikTok prophecy, the Machine Man of Oz, in the app TikTok. However, the Oz books contain all sorts of technology that they predicted or saw in advance, or however you want to describe it, that they knew would be developed, and in that way, continues to prove itself true as a prophecy of the future. So, thanks for watching. See you soon. Thanks, fairies. Love you.